Good day everyone. Welcome to this video presentation on system analysis step of the system development life cycle. My discussion will focus on the data and process modeling using the data flow diagram or DFD. At the end of this video, you will understand the DFD concepts and apply these concepts in developing or creating a DFD. So let us have first a quick glance on the previous lessons that we have already discussed to connect with our discussion today. So here's the basic steps of the systems development life cycle, and based from our previous discussion, we understand how each step affects the entire development of the information system. We have able to complete the discussion on the planning step, and we are moving halfway to the analysis step. So let's have first a quick review on what happens in the planning step. Here, the system analyst will conduct the preliminary investigation in order to identify the problems and or the needs of the current system of the company, and then identify a possible solution that will address the problems identified from the current system. So these things has to be contained in a system request, which will be evaluated by the reviewing committee of the company. So once approval is done, the system analyst has to conduct the feasibility study. While the system analyst performs the feasibility study, he has to come up with at least 3 possible alternative solutions, where he has to discuss the feasibility issues of each alternative. Then in that feasibility report, he has to present these alternative solutions to the management that will serve as a guide for the management to decide which among the alternatives is best for the company and considered to be technically, economically, operationally, and schedule feasible. So when there is now a go signal from the management to proceed with the project, then a project plan has to be created. Then we can now proceed to the step 2, which is the analysis step. Here, the system analyst has to conduct a thorough study in the old or the current system, as well as the new or the approved system, by performing the requirements modeling process. Remember what we have discussed during the requirements modeling process. Okay, we said that the system analyst has to use different fact-finding or requirements gathering techniques in order to identify the user and the system requirements, which will be used later. Okay, the information will be used later in the making of the logical model and in documenting the system requirements. Now, the logical model will basically show what the system must do regardless of how it will be implemented physically. The systems analyst has many graphical techniques to describe an information system, and the most basic among all is actually the data flow diagram. At the same time, he can also do object modeling in order to present as well the information system. As what you've seen here, class, the data flow diagram will become the basis later on in creating a data dictionary. Further, the data dictionary will be also needed in doing the design step, which is actually making the physical model through the entity relationship diagram. So that is how important data and process modeling will be. So let's begin learning what is data flow diagram. A data flow diagram is described to be a graphical representation to show the flow of data within the system. It also shows the processes in the system. So this DFD visually represents the systems and the processes that's hard to describe using text. You can use this diagram to map out an existing system and make it better, or to plan out a new system. Whether you are improving or an existing process or implementing a new one, a data flow diagram makes the task of the systems analyst easier. So these are a few of the objectives of data flow diagram. First, purpose of DFD basically is that it provides a bridge between users and system developers. So what does it mean? System developers are not workers in the company, but they have to develop a system for the users. So to establish connection between users and the system developers, we need to create a data flow diagram so that system developers will understand what the users do in the company and what information they need to perform their job. Second purpose is the DFD is useful for analyzing the old system as well as the proposed or the new system. Now this will help because the system analyst can compare and check later on at which part of the old system has to be improved in terms of the processes and the information that will be required in the new system. Third, since the data flow diagram is already graphical and there are symbols to be used, now this will remove thousands of words which will be difficult later on to understand by the system designers and other involved in the development of the project. And lastly, this is a very good basis for system design as it will show the movement of data from one process to another. The systems analyst then will understand the information requirements of the users by conceptualizing how the data moves in the company, the processes or transformation that the data undergoes, and what the outputs are, even if sample forms or hard data are provided by the company. Now, there are two categories of data flow diagram. One is the logical and the other one is the physical. The logical DFD focuses on the business and how the business operates. It describes the events or the processes that happens and the data required and being produced in each event or process, while the physical DFD shows how the system will be implemented. So it includes the hardware, the software, the files, and the people involved in the system. The diagram here, shows how the logical DFD and the physical DFD are created. Look how it presented the processes. These are the processes, using this symbol, and the information flows. Try to observe the difference between the two. As you see in the logical DFD, the process described are actually the business activities. It does not deals with the technical aspects of a process or the system. So in this example, like how the customer buys a product. So basically, the input from the customer, which is our entity, is the product to purchase. Then he can do the first process, which is to select the item. Then this process will, produce the output, the item ID, and then the process 2 will be performed, which is to the customer can look up the prices. While if you try to look at here on this side, the physical DFD, look how the processes are transformed. Here, the actual process is being presented, while in the physical DFD, it focuses more on how the system is implemented. So it focuses on it specifies, the software, the hardware, the files, and the people involved in the information flow. So here, instead of selecting item, you can see here, process 1 is pass items over the scanner. So there is the involvement of the hardware. So from that, the same information flow that we have in the logical DFD, this will now be how the information flow is transformed in this particular process. So from product to purchase, it is now transformed into UPC barcode, which will serve as input to process number 2. So here we have only lookup prices. Then in here in the physical DFD, we have lookup code and price in file. So this is the basic difference between logical and the physical DFD. So ideally, the systems are developed by, first, we will analyze the current system by making the logical DFD of this current system or the old system. Then after that, we can now create the logical DFD of the proposed or the new system. So we can see there now in the logical DFD the added features that the new system should include. And finally, the best method for implementing the new system will be to come up with the physical DFD of the proposed or the new system. There are 3 levels of data flow diagram which we have to create. So first level is what we call as the level 0 or the context diagram. Second is the level 1 or the diagram 0. Then we have the level 2, which is also called as the child diagram. But before we understand how to create this one, so we have first to know and familiarize what are the symbols used, okay, in creating or developing a data flow diagram. So DFD shows the way information flows through a process or system. It includes the data inputs and outputs, data stores, and the various sub-processes that the data moves through. So data flow diagram are actually built using standardized symbols and notation. DFD use 4 basic symbols that represents the process, the data flow, the data store, and the external entities. So there are several different versions of DFD symbols that exist, but they have served the same purpose. The most common set used for DFD symbols are Gain and Sarson symbols and the Jordan symbols. So whichever set we are going to use, it means the same thing. So there's no difference between the meaning of each symbol used. So in the next video, we will continue our discussion by understanding what does each of these symbol means and the rules on how to use these symbols and how to develop the DFD. So that's all for now. Bye.